What's going on, everyone, and welcome into another episode of Expected Bets for your go-to podcast for all things hockey betting. Today, I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Franco and Betsky. Betsky, I'll start with you. How's it going?
Oh, pretty good. Just got back from Chicago with the betting news boys.
Yeah, how was that?
Wild time. It was fun though.
Yeah, you fully recovered, or are you still kind of
No, I feel
on the
awful
regroup?
today.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Not at all.
There it is. Yep. Any Coors Lights in the future for maybe Thursday night football, or is that still on the IR for now?
Yeah, well, that may be a game time decision.
Game time decision. All right. We'll have to let Schefter know.
Multi-day detox.
Yeah.
Franco, how we doing?
I'm good, man. I won't be needing to detox, so Thursday night's good to go. I'm ready to watch your boy Josh Allen throw some picks. All right, so I'll be making sure to reach out to you when that happens.
Yeah, no, I can't wait for that tweet too of Josh Allen over the half interception. It makes my week for Franco. So thanks a lot for that one. I'm gonna have to start just kind of reverse fading it and just going Jalen Hurts over half an interception is there.
Maybe he will be that guy this year. We'll see.
I hope it's not Josh, but all right, let's get into the team preview for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Getting into the Toronto Maple Leafs team preview. Betsky, a lot of turnover for this organization. Pretty much a typical offseason for the Leafs as you got guys coming and going in every which direction, it feels like. Let's start with the coaching. Sheldon Keefe is out. Craig Berube is in. What are your thoughts on that kind of main component of this team moving forward?
Really interesting decision. This is one of those things to me that it's either going to make them totally catapult up the standings and be a better playoff team, or it's going to blow up in their face year one.
It's Toronto. I think I already know where this is heading. It feels like, sorry, Toronto
there's
fans.
no in between. There's no in between.
Yep, exactly. No. Franco, a few off-season additions to this roster. OEL comes over, Hakanpää, and now today Pacioretty was announced. So some of those names. What are your thoughts on the off-season additions the Leafs have made?
Yeah, I mean, Chris Tanev as well, which is huge. We all watched him just be the shot-blocking monster during that run for the Stars last year, and we're loving every second of it, but 6-year contract, man. I mean, holy hell, that is going to age horribly. But until then, we could be excited about it, right? Hopefully he's coming in healthy. This blue line looks pretty good. Probably its best iteration in the last few years. I feel like we've seen a lot of hype of guys like Klingberg and your Giordano coming in, and just it's been like a crazy revolving door on that blue line. It feels like the forward group has mostly stayed intact, but this feels a lot better than it has the last like 2 or 3 years with all the changes that they made. So I really do hope Hakanpää is right. I know he's not like officially signed yet. It's like a weird like gray area going on there. Okay. I know Keefe had announced it back in like July or something, and yet he's still not there. And I read one thing saying that he might not be healthy yet either. So we'll see. But if he is healthy, I mean, this looks really solid. Ekman Larsson played a pretty key role for that Florida team last year. And like I said, Tanev is just that stud, just defensive stalwart that I think they were hoping for with a guy like Giordano. But I mean, he's so far on the back end of his career, I don't think he had the impact that they were looking for.
Yeah, that is going to be interesting here. Betsky, Max Domi gets resigned. It feels like he finally has a home. He can stop apartment hopping per se. He can finally get a place in Toronto now. 4-year, $15 million. They also re-signed Lindgren and Wool as well. But going off the departures, Bertuzzi's out, Giordano's out, Edmonton, Klingberg, Samsonov, Jones. There's a list of like 10 of these guys that are out here. I think Bertuzzi's kind of be the big one that they miss. But what are your thoughts on their overall departures?
Yeah, I'll disagree. I don't think they're going to miss anybody here. I mean, a lot of these guys were experiments. A lot of these guys had maybe 1 or 2 year deals. trade line acquisitions, and none of them really panned out in the way they were hoping, especially Bertuzzi, which was kind of everybody threw their hats in the air, excited to see how he could bring some grit to this team. But I think they kept the right guys, and I think they made nice moves to really kind of fill in people to play those roles that they're hoping some of these guys could have played. And it's going to be interesting to see if it's still a revolving door or they finally get it right. I mean, you can literally kind of cross the lines of like the player that is now coming in that they've replaced, like OEL kind of taking that Klingberg / Brody approach to the ice. Matty Nyes is going to kind of take over that Tyler Bertuzzi spot. I know he's an actual prospect that they've developed and brought up, but he seems to have a lot more heart and guts for this team than Bertuzzi did for a lot of the season. I know Bertuzzi was a lot better in the playoffs against a team he had a brief stint with as well. And then, I mean, destiny that Domi is here, and it seems that he finally is working his ass off and kind of doing all the right things again to really make a solid home. So we were kind of saying it before we hit the record button here, but I think the forward lines and the D pairings look the best on paper than we've seen in previous years of the Leafs.
Yeah, now getting to kind of the negative part of this roster, Franco, their goaltending here. Wool and Stolarz are their two starting goaltenders right now. You mentioned their offense kind of looks better, if not the same. Their defense has certainly kind of improved. What are your thoughts on this goaltending situation? Because it feels like every year in the playoffs, the Leafs come in with high hopes, and we kind of know what happens in net. There's always something that goes wrong for them.
Yeah, it's a shame they weren't able to bring back Samsonov. I know he had his struggles, and like most guys do when they come to this team, it seems like. But he really turned it around towards the end of the season last year and looked the part in the playoffs, to be honest with you. I mean, I know they had their struggles, and Wall came in and played a few games in the playoffs as well, but I thought Samsonov played pretty well for them overall in general, right? They kind of found their guy, it felt like. And then now they're like, now let's move on from him and go to Wall. But Wall, like, he's had injury issues every single year so far that he's been in the league. And now you're going to say he's the 1A. You bring in Stolarz to back him up, who we know isn't a starting goalie in this league. He works perfectly as a number two, maybe like a 1B type guy that plays 35 games or something like that. He might be able to handle that. But I mean, if the problem is if Wall doesn't work out or if Wall gets injured, they don't have someone to come in. Like, Stolarz is not going to be able to play.
They also brought in Matt Murray, but
yeah, I'm not even gonna.
I'm not gonna address that comment. Yeah,
yeah.
That's fair.
I mean, it's just scary to think about that. Like, you've built this solid forward group that is there. The D lines look great, and then you just have like toothpicks behind blocking the net. Like, I hope Wall stays healthy, because if he does, like, I think he is a good goaltender. It's just it's a lot to put on this kid.
Yeah. Betsky, do you have any final thoughts on this roster here? Their goaltending, or I mean, this pending contract situation too with Nylander coming up. Obviously, Matthews gets re-signed. It feels like they're always playing salary cap hell up in Toronto.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I always try to project what these teams are and like right up to the cap do, and they always impress me with how they maneuver it. So not going to try to make any predictions here, but I do feel like this is a huge year with the full band. I think if they don't do much in the playoffs, you could see some big changes here. I know I've said this probably 3 years and 4 years in a row now, but man, you gotta think they're coming near the end of the road of having all of Marner, Matthews, Tavares, and Nylander. So I think one for sure, and then is probably going to not be on this team next year if they have a disappointing postseason, and maybe two.
Yeah, it feels like we can just insert the same clip from our past 2 season previews
Yeah.
of the band. But Matthews feels like he's pretty much shored up on this team for the future.
Yep.
So it looks like it's going to be either kind of Marner, Nylander, one of those guys just is going to be departing at the end of the season. It's going to be interesting to see where they end up too.
Yeah. Yeah, and next season this team may have a lot more cap space to play with and a lot more flexibility with what they want to do with that roster. Even though Tanev's going to be anchoring down a good piece of that blue line for 6 years.
Yeah, maybe they finally go after kind of a goaltender as well once that cap space frees up. So who knows? Maybe they get better. Before we get into the best worst case scenario for the Toronto Maple Leafs, I'd like to talk to you about our wonderful sponsor, BetterHelp. This episode of Expected Bets 4 is brought to you by BetterHelp. Have you ever stopped to think about something new you'd love to learn? As adults, we don't always make the time to learn we used to when we were kids. Kids are constantly exploring and growing, but somewhere along the way, life gets busy and we lose some of that curiosity. What's something you've been wanting to dive into? Maybe it's cooking, picking up a new language, or even figure out your golf game to finally beat your new friend. Just because we're older doesn't mean we have to stop growing. In fact, therapy can help you reconnect with that sense of wonder. It reminds you that your back-to-school moment can happen at any time. Therapy is not just for people who have gone through something major. It's for anyone looking to be the best version of themselves. Therapy can help you learn positive ways to cope with stress, set healthy boundaries, and tackle challenges with more confidence. It's really about giving yourself the tools to thrive and grow, no matter what stage of life you're in. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/THPN today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/THPN. Now back to the show. Getting into the best worst case scenario for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Franco, I'm going to start with you here. The best case, is it crazy to say Stanley Cup?
I don't think it's crazy. I think you have a former Stanley Cup winning coach, right?
Yeah.
The big, the question mark is always like, is it the coach or is it the players, right? Like what is the reason why this core has not been able to get over the hump, right? And a lot of people have thrown Keefe under the bus, and
maybe it's a city.
Yeah, I
maybe
mean,
it's the press.
It's the press. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to factor in there, and I'm more on the side of that. I think Marner is a hell of a player, and I know that there's been a lot of knocks on him over the last couple of years, and a lot of Toronto fans want him out, and I just don't see how you replace a guy with putting up that many points that easily. It's not just something you just throw somebody else in there. So, I mean, I think adding Berube could work. It's just is his message going to work? You have to hope that he's not that older guy coming in that doesn't fit with the core of this team and the youth of this team. There are as many veterans as there are on this team. There's still a decent amount of younger players on this team. So is he going to be able to find that right balance to get the most out of everybody and push these guys to the next level? I mean, we all know they want to win. It's not like that's why you play the game, right? So can he unlock what's been missing this whole time? That's the key, I feel like.
Yeah, and even if his message is conveyed and kind of received throughout that locker room, that goaltending could also be the one railroad or rail car that lets it go off the tracks pretty easily. Betsky, the worst case scenario for this team, it feels like they're just going to continually get stuck in that first round exit kind of a trap.
Yep. And playing against the same teams that knocked them out in the first round. So, chances of them playing the Bruins or Tampa will be pretty likely
Florida,
in the first round unless they can win the division. And that will be a heartbreaking experience for fans. I will say, I don't think even despite the goaltending, this is a team that's way too talented to miss the postseason
Yes.
unless you lose multiple stars. I mean, I think even if you were to lose Matthews for most of the season, this is a team that can recover and still just pull forward and still be able to crack through and make it into the playoffs. But yeah, I think first round exit's probably about as worse as it can get again.
Yeah. And
Especially,
not,
a sweep or 4-1 loss,
yeah, it seems like they always kind of have one of those top four forwards not show up in the postseason. I mean, that was what the Rangers for a while with their kind of top four, but they all kind of clicked last season. So you're wondering, I'm sure the fans are, of just like, when is everyone going to put together kind of their best foot forward here in the postseason and maybe we make a little run? But we haven't seen that happen. And whether it's injuries or just poor play, they just haven't kind of clicked yet.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting to monitor going forward. And it feels like that guy who doesn't show up this year is really going to be on the hot seat if it is Marner or Nylander, So we'll see. All right. Before we get into some team and player futures, I'd like to talk to you about our sponsor, DraftKings. NFL Week 1 is here, and a new season means new ways to get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple like picking a player to score a touchdown. The NFL season kicks off on Thursday night with the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Baltimore Ravens. The Chiefs are currently favored by 3, with the total being set at 46.5. If you're looking to place your bet on Week 1 NFL action, head over to DraftKings. Ready to do a touchdown dance of your own? Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the best place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $250 in bonus bets when you just bet $5 and get 1 month of NFL Plus Premium on us. Only at DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in New Hampshire, Oregon, and Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball. NFL Plus Premium offer available only to new and former NFL Plus subscribers. Additional NFL Plus Premium terms at nfl.com/terms.
Getting into some team and player prop futures. The regular season points total is set at 102.5. Last season, they had 102. Franco, I'm going to throw it to you here first. We talked about their defensive unit improving. Their offense kind of remains stagnant, if not gets better. And like we said, so what are your thoughts on this regular season points total at 102.5?
It feels pretty spot on, I would say.
Yeah.
I don't know that they're going to be that wild card team, but I also don't feel like with that goaltending, and we've kind of talked about the other teams that we think are going to be towards the top that have that goaltending locked up. I don't see them passing them because of that. So I could see them ranking around like third or fourth in this division, and that 102 is probably going to be right around there, like 100, 101, 102 points. So I don't really want to go over or under there. Obviously, the playoff odds, yes or no, I'm not trying to mess with anything like that. So that's, I'll just stay off it.
Betsy, what was the stat you gave out, if you remember, in terms of a team with a certain number of points, like the playoff cutoff was? Do you remember that on one of the other episodes? Was it?
I think it was last season, 91 was the cutoff. So
okay. All right. So there's more room than I thought. I thought it was a little bit higher. But yeah, any thoughts on this regular season points total? Obviously, I think the playoff odds minus 472 for yes, plus 350 for no are kind of out the window there. But I'll throw it to you in case you have a play on their point total.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it with every of the top like 3-4 teams of the division here is give me them the win the division over their regular season, because you're getting way better odds, and really it's kind of a 3-way, maybe you could argue a 4-way match between Toronto, Boston. I guess after kind of going through it, we got to put Tampa on the list, and And who else were we saying?
That was kind of
Oh,
it. And then we had that
yeah.
middle tier of Buffalo,
Yeah,
maybe
who's
Montreal
going to take
sneaks
that
in
step
there,
up? And
Ottawa,
yeah.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, if anything, I would rather take the win the division for any of those 4 top teams for this division than the regular points. But.
you're not looking at the conference or Stanley Cup odds for the Leafs?
So I was saying this before.
Oh,
I don't mind the conference.
okay. That was
I think
sarcastic.
no, I
I
know,
thought
I
everyone
know.
was going to be off them for sure. But all right, yeah, you got
But
my
again,
attention now.
it's partially the same theory with all of this. Is this division is the best in the league?
Yep.
This is going to be a division where they just all eat wins from each other, and Toronto could win the division in the same way the Capitals snuck into the playoffs by, a tiebreaker with Boston or something. If Berube can get this team buying into designated roles and playing up to those roles, and if the blue line can really help the goaltending and just play just less scrambly play, I guess I want to say. And if Wool stays healthy, I mean, can't say you like this team any worse than Boston.
Yeah.
Outside goaltending, you can't. But like there's a yin and yang with almost every single team in this division, and it's really, I think health is going to be a huge factor here, and the buy-in that the players have, and I don't know. This could be one of those seasons where Marner's on a contract year, and after all the trade rumors this summer, maybe he comes out and is phenomenal. Maybe that big 4 just all puts it together. Maybe somebody like OEL can help stabilize that entire blue line. I don't know. I don't hate it. I don't hate them being like a Magic team and then getting swept by Boston in the first round. I mean, that's just like a Cinderella story, right? It's
Maybe
just
we find
perfect.
Bigfoot too.
Yeah,
Toronto's
yeah,
top
totally.
4
But
forwards playing well in the playoffs all together. Whoa, that
yeah.
hasn't happened. So
But to me, it's like pick your poison now of those top teams because you're getting
yes.
the So Boston conference was plus 900. I'm just kind of looking back real quick. Florida, plus 550. So it's 100 points off from this one. And then Tampa, I actually kind of really like those odds. What were they?
I mean, my whole thing too was right. You look at Boston, Florida, Tampa Bay has had proven success in the playoffs in years past. So you have something to kind of base that off of. So you're looking almost more towards their conference odds, right?
Yeah.
Toronto, the division odds plus 270. It feels like they're more of a regular season team. And I mean, they haven't proven much in the postseason, only getting out of the first round, once in the past 11, 12 years? So it feels like that's going to be kind of the angle if you're looking to back this team for a future, is look at the division rather than the conference.
Yep.
Would it still be a win for this team if they finish like with 112 points or something, take the division, just are dominant in the season, and then they get swept in the playoffs? Like,
no.
How do you feel as a Toronto fan? Like, are they still blowing it up after that?
Yeah, I think arguably that's worse because if you're winning this division, there's a good chance you're playing like the Buffalo, Detroit, Ottawa team that sneaks in. So yeah, I mean, one of those teams beating you in the first round instead of the guys that have done it to you over and over and have all the playoff experience, like the fresh face Buffalo who hasn't gotten into
Buffalo
the playoffs
beat him in the first round
or whatever, since like before some of the viewers have been born, and they like make it and beat you. That I think that actually I'd like to replace the worst case scenario. That is it, right?
Yeah, I would be insufferable on
Division
Twitter
win,
for at
President's
least a
Trophy.
week if Toronto had the 1 seed and we sneak in and beat them in the first round. Oh, I would lose so many followers, been muted. Yeah.
I think people from Toronto would come down and burn Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean, they already kind of fill out the stadium or the arena during the regular season games. It's cheaper to travel to Buffalo to watch them than it is to watch them in their hometown, which you could say is another issue in the postseason because the fans just aren't as rowdy.
Yep, but yeah, I don't know. I think this could be that year that they just kind of take another step and give more people more hope, and then we see what happens in the postseason. But I realize I think I read off some of the conference finals odds there, but
yeah.
everybody's around that plus 500 to plus 250 as far
Yeah.
as those big four. So
Yeah, I mean, Franco, you're saying if they lose in the first round again, you're like, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing again and again and again and expecting a different result. Like something in that top four forwards are going to have to change. You know, they already changed the coach. Like it's at a certain point, you just have to look at your roster.
Can't blame the coach anymore if they lose this year.
That's true.
The crazy thing is if Marner doesn't show up, you're potentially having him walk. So you're not getting like any value from him after all that.
Yeah.
It's okay. The Flyers will take him.
Tavares' contract's up, so they're going to have $11 million to play with that. So there's going to be some big changes. But imagine they let Tavares walk, or maybe re-sign him on the cheap and let Marner walk, and this was all for that.
Has Tavares done enough to warrant another contract
in Toronto?
Toronto?
If you can get him at like a 3C price,
I wouldn't mind moving on from Tavares if I
think they should.
Yeah.
I think they should.
That's the easy one.
Yeah. Getting into some player point props here. Matthews at 101.5, Tavares at 67.5, Nyes at 48.5, Marner at 94.5, and Nylander at 92.5. I think this is the team with the most player props offered on DK here, it seems like. I'll start with you, Franco. Any of those jump out to you in terms of some player point futures?
I am so excited for Matty Nyes, man. 48.5. It seems like a smash playing online with Matthews and Marner, right? I have to think that this year they keep him up there, right? Like there was a lot of shifting last year and all that fun stuff. Like you need to see what this kid is if you're Toronto. You can't be moving him up and down the lines, and just let him ride it out and see if he can be that guy. Because if we are moving on from these players, if it's Tavares or if it's Marner next season, like this guy's going to have to be a part of this team going forward, no matter how you slice it. So 40.5 playing on a line with those two guys, 18.5 goals. I want both. Just book them right now. Easiest bet for me with this team.
Love it. Betsky, anything from you?
I'm going to go Marner at contract year, boys.
Yep.
I love targeting people on a contract year, and on top of that, he got this must not have been a fun summer. Like if this should be a big push from him, and I think this is going to be where we can see potentially the best he can bring, and if not, he's probably going to have to move on from Toronto, and you can tell he loves being there. So 94.5, he's done it. The two previous seasons outside of this one, he did have 85 points this season and 69 games played. So I feel like this is a nice, fair line for somebody who had a little bit of a regression. But we saw what Nylander did on a contract year. I mean, it's a thing. We saw what Pasta did on a contract year. We saw what Pettersson's done on a contract year. Give me it.
Yeah. No, I that's a great angle too. And he's one of the superstars in the NHL. So why is he not going to try to garner up as much money as he can for his next contract, whether that be in Toronto or a different team? Looking at the goals, Matthews is at 55.5, which you just kind of have to laugh at. You're like, oh my God. But he did have 69 last year and 60 back in 2022, winning the Rocket Richard. Tavares at 29.5, Nyes at 18.5, Marner at 30.5, and Nylander at 38.5. Am I crazy for wanting the under in Tavares? He had 29 last year, 36 the year before, but the 2 years before that, he had 27 and 19. It's an interesting second line. I think Nylander's obviously that primary shooter on that line, so I don't want to take his point total under, because he probably will be the primary assist on some of those Nylander goals. But at 28.5 here, that's what he's 29.5. I like the under.
I like that. That's a good look.
Yeah,
and I think with some of the pieces they brought in, like, Pacioretty's on the professional tryout. Maybe he gets bumped up to that line. Maybe we see a shift away from Tavares on that top, 2-line role, and he moves to a 3rd-line role. I could see something like that happening. So, yeah, that feels pretty good, especially considering he's only gone over it once in his last 4 years.
Yeah, that was my thought as well. Any plays on Berube to be the coach of the year? 8.5 to 1.
I would rather take stuff with a little bit of better odds, but the storyline's there. Everything's set up for it, but there's some other coaches that we'll eventually get to that I just like the setup a little bit more, the odds a little bit more, and there's a little less risk. I do think this has a chance to really blow up.
How?
And it's got the goalie issue. I mean, we saw it last year with Lindy Ruff, and he was
Injury plagued goalie. Yeah,
yeah,
that was a shit show.
and it's out of their control at that point.
Yep. How far does Toronto have to go for Berube to win Coach of the Year?
I think they have to win the President's Trophy, right?
Like win the division for sure. Maybe be the top in the conference. I think they have to be the top of the conference, if not the President's Trophy, like Franco said.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's this the benchmark's so
you
high.
Almost want to coach with lower expectations that over delivers rather than someone that's already pretty much at the top and one of the favorites to win the division to do that, but also be the most dominant team in the NHL.
Yeah,
and have a lot of things go right.
Yeah,
I would say Berube has a better chance of having a really nice playoff run and taking this team to the conference finals and getting praise for that, and finally get the sigh of the relief of the whole city than winning the President's Trophy.
Yeah,
agree.
Looking at a few,
especially in this division.
yeah. We started with a gauntlet of a division here. Looking at a few of the trophies, Matthews is the favorite to win the Rocket Richard at plus 135. He's won it, 3 of the past 4 years here. Yeah. Art Ross has some interesting odds as well with the Hart. Norris, I think everyone's staying off the Vezina odds here, but Franco, any one of those trophies intrigue you? The player, Matthews is the favorite for the Rocket, as I mentioned before. Are you biting on those odds, or is this kind of a stay away spot?
I think the only one I would maybe consider would be Marner, Art Ross, maybe, right? I mean, I could see the scenario that Besky was talking about where he just puts up a ton of points. It's going to be hard, though, man, with guys like McDavid and McKinnon. It's just such a thing to go against that it makes it really difficult. I think, I mean, overall, I just don't see much value here. You're paying at the top for a guy like Matthews for the Rocket Richard. It's just, why are you going to lay a plus 135? Just take him to score on a given night along with Toronto money line or something like that, and you're going to get the same odds and be cashed out in just one game. So, yeah, I don't love the prices here.
Yeah, Betsky, any of those awards jump out to you?
Yeah, no, I'm in the same boat. I think the Berube for Jack Adams is my favorite, and I guess if you're going to take Matthews' goal prop, why not take his Rocket Richard prop instead? But
yeah.
I mean, the only other one I guess would be interesting is maybe Marner for the Hart, or even maybe Selke if he just has a crazy season and they want to boost the Toronto boy, and
he's not a center.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
so the Selke ones doesn't
Selke's
feel
probably out
possible,
then.
really. Yeah.
So, all right, let's get to our closing thoughts on this team here, Franco. I think you put it best here. I'm looking at your closing statement. Stanley Cup or bust, it feels like, for this roster and the Toronto fans.
Yeah, I feel bad for this team just because that's
the expectations are so high.
Yeah, there's nothing else.
Yeah.
So I mean, when you're set with those kind of expectations coming into it, you're just destined to fail. I mean, eventually you're going to get over that hump, but when is that? Is that 20 years from now? Like, no one's going to be happy with this team. It's just the inevitable thing, unfortunately, in Toronto. Whether it's the media, whether it's social media, whether it's just the fans, it's a tough place to play. I mean, it's flat out. So Stanley Cup or bust, and I really think I hope that Joseph Wall can stay healthy, because I think this team will be really fun to watch if that happens, and maybe we can actually be excited for this team to compete in the playoffs if that's the case. So I like that chance, and we'll see what this team is next year. That's really what it comes down to, what the changes are going to be, which is inevitable with this team anyway, with their cap crunch every single year.
Yeah, no, I mentioned before, but it feels like we can kind of just cut out the segments of the team preview and just kind of the award section, clip that, and then the new additions and departures, just swap it out every year. That's basically our Toronto Maple Leafs preview, it feels like. Betsky, your closing thoughts on this roster?
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. Again, winning the division is not going to be enough to really make the fans happy, and I kind of see that as your regular season peak here. And yeah, maybe Berube makes some magic in the postseason, and everybody is appeased, but it's going to be a battle.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the regular season, they're almost expecting to be one of the top seeds here. And then hockey season, it feels like really starts in Toronto that week as soon as the playoffs start. But all right. We want to thank everyone for listening to this episode of Expected Bets 4. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already, and also check out our social media on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Again, thank you to our sponsors, BetterHelp and DraftKings as well. We appreciate everyone for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.